Shattered calculus along the Oververse ledger. Prologue. Chains that break back. The slave-trading alcove in the quiet sector clung to the side of a drifting asteroid like a parasite, its docking bay lit by flickering violet strips that cast long, trembling shadows across the metal floor. The air tasted of rust and the faint sourness of too many species breathing the same recycled atmosphere. Hovercrafts drifted in and out of the bay, their engines humming with the soft predatory purr of machines built for silence. Inside, the auction hall stretched like a cathedral of cruelty, its walls reinforced with psychic dampeners and lined with surveillance drones that hovered like metallic insects waiting to sting. The moment Tan Overeem stepped through the archway, the atmosphere shifted. Conversations died mid-sentence. A dozen species froze. A few recognized him instantly, and those few quietly gathered their belongings and slipped out without a word. No one wanted to be present when the orange-skinned Zenith-blooded master of the Syndicate arrived at a slave auction. Tan moved with the quiet confidence of a man who had never once feared another living thing. His skin glowed faintly under the violet lights, the hue deepening along the sharp lines of his jaw and the powerful muscles of his arms. His spiked hair, black at the roots, ember red at the tips, rose like a crown of controlled flame. His molten gold eyes swept the hall with the calm of a predator who already knew the outcome of the hunt. Behind him walked his entourage. Varric, his technological advisor, strode at his right, tall, broad-shouldered, bronze-skinned, and dressed in a perfectly tailored suit threaded with circuitry. His visor flickered with shifting holographic data as he scanned the room. At Tan's left walked Lyra, his lawyer, a young, breathtakingly beautiful orange-skinned woman whose long black hair fell like a waterfall of midnight. Her amber eyes flicked with jealousy at every female who dared glance at Tan. She hid her love behind professionalism, but her clenched jaw betrayed her. And behind them came Melira, Tan's accountant, an older dark elf woman with obsidian skin, silver eyes, and hair braided with crystalline beads. Her beauty was sharp and ancient. She loved Tan too, but in the quiet, reverent way of elves who could love for centuries without ever speaking the words aloud. Together, they descended into the heart of the auction. The auctioneer, a squat, four-armed insectoid with mandibles stained purple from narcotic nectar, chittered nervously as Tan approached. But Tan didn't even look at it. His gaze was fixed on the frozen lot. There, chained to a reinforced pillar of psychic null metal, stood Pearl. She was enormous, nearly 7 feet tall, with pale white skin that shimmered like frost under starlight. Her blue hair fell in thick waves down her back, tipped with crystalline ice. 2 curved horns jutted from her temples, glowing faintly with soul-bound energy. Her tusks framed lips curled in fury. Her body was a masterpiece of raw power, voluptuous, thick-muscled, carved with the strength of a glacier. Frost steamed from her wrists where the chains bit into her skin. The moment she saw Tan, her glacial blue eyes widened in recognition. Then she roared. The temperature in the hall plummeted. Frost crawled across the floor. A storm of ice shards erupted from her hands, forming jagged spears that she hurled with enough force to shatter armored vehicles. Tan didn't move. The first spear struck his chest and exploded into harmless powder. The second shattered against his shoulder. The third, a massive pillar of ice thicker than a tree trunk, slammed into him with a thunderous crack and dissolved into mist. Gasps rippled through the hall. Pearl snarled, breath forming clouds of frost. She summoned a colossal hammer of ice, its head the size of a hovercar, and swung it with enough force to crater the floor. Tan caught it with one hand. The impact shook the entire chamber. The floor cracked. Drones fell from the air. Several spectators fainted. Pearl stared at him, stunned. Tan tightened his grip, twisted, and shattered the hammer. Before she could react, he stepped forward, seized her by the waist, and slammed her down with a brutal, efficient motion that sent a shockwave through the hall. She hit the ground hard, the breath knocked from her lungs. Her eyes fluttered. The frost around her dimmed. Tan knelt beside her, his voice low and calm. "It's over." Her consciousness slipped away. The auctioneer scuttled forward, trembling. "Yes, sir, she is extremely dangerous." "So am I," Tan said. Varric smirked. Understatement of the century. Lyra stepped forward, voice sharp. "We'll take her. Prepare the contract." A hulking reptilian brute reached toward Melira, perhaps thinking her distracted. Without turning, she flicked her wrist. A chain of shimmering soul-bound energy snapped into existence, wrapped around the brute's arm, and twisted. The crack echoed like a gunshot. The brute collapsed, howling. Melira didn't even blink. "Touch me again," she murmured, "and I'll take the other one." Lyra rolled her eyes. "Show off." "You're jealous," Melira replied smoothly. "Of you? Please." "Of him," Melira corrected, nodding toward Tan. "Lira seputteret." That's irrelevant." Varric chuckled. "Ladies, please. We're in a den of criminals. Try to act professional." "You first," Lyra snapped. Tan ignored them all. His focus remained on Pearl, unconscious but still radiating cold so intense that frost crept across the floor beneath her. "Prepare the paperwork," he said. Within minutes, the transaction was complete. Pearl was legally freed, though the chains remained until they could safely transport her. Tan stepped forward, bent down, and lifted her into his arms like a large blanket. The hall fell silent. She was massive, easily weighing more than a hover engine block, yet Tan carried her as though she were a group of pillows. Her blue hair spilled over his shoulder, her cold breath brushing against his neck. Lyra's jaw clenched. Melira's eyes softened. Varric simply nodded, impressed. Tan turned toward the exit. "Let's go home." As they walked through the hall, the crowd parted like water before a warship. No one dared speak. No one dared move. The sight of Tan Overeem carrying an unconscious ice ogress, one who had nearly frozen the hall solid, was enough to silence even the most hardened criminals. Outside, the air of the quiet sector was sharp and metallic, tinged with the scent of plasma engines and cold vacuum. The docking bay lights flickered overhead as Tan carried Pearl toward the Syndicate shuttle. Behind him, Lyra whispered, "She's beautiful." Melira arched a brow. "Jealous again?" "No, Lyra materth. Just observing." Varric snorted. "You're both jealous." They reached the shuttle. The ramp lowered with a hiss of steam. Tan paused, looking down at Pearl's unconscious face, the frost on her lashes, the faint glow of her horns, the strength in her jaw even in sleep. He tightened his grip. And with that, he carried her aboard, leaving the quiet sector behind, and unknowingly setting into motion the first spark of a storm that would soon engulf all of Ataland. Introduction, Warning and Wounds. Part 1, Out of Space and Out of Time. The last echoes of the court's ceremonial gong faded through the vaulted chamber, as Emperor Kalis Veyrath rose from his throne. The throne room of the Dominion was a marvel of psychic tech architecture, a fusion of polished stone and shimmering soul steel veins that pulse faintly with the collective psychic resonance of the Empire. Every Atalandi citizen contributed to that resonance, their soul-bound abilities woven into the Dominion's infrastructure like threads in a living tapestry. The air itself hummed with latent power, a soft vibration that only those with trained minds could feel. Kalis felt it always. It was as familiar to him as his own heartbeat. He stepped down from the dais, his emerald cloak trailing behind him like a living shadow. His officials bowed deeply, offering thanks for another day of service. Kalis waved them off with a tired but genuine smile. "You've all done well," he said. "Go home. Eat something. Sleep. Pretend you don't have to see me again tomorrow." A ripple of laughter moved through the chamber. Even after decades of rule, Kalis remained a leader who inspired loyalty not through fear, but through the sheer force of his presence, a presence built from discipline, honor, and a soul-bound power so vast that even the strongest Psy warriors felt small beside him. As the last of the officials filed out, his steward approached with a data pad. "Your Majesty, a few updates before you retire." Kalis sighed. "Of course there are. Your wife and daughter send word from the eastern provinces. They are mediating a trade dispute over the harvesting rights of the crystal trees." Kalis groaned. "Crystal trees? Again. I'd rather wrestle a sand WRM barehanded." The steward smiled politely. "They said as much. They assured you they have it under control." "Good. Because I have absolutely no desire to get dragged into an argument about bark density and export quotas." "Understood, sire. And your son has departed for the southern border." He will attend the conference regarding the disappearances in Sector 8 and Sector Foreman. Kalus's expression darkened slightly. Still no word from the Adventurers Guild? None, sire. Entire parties have vanished. Settlements too. Kalus nodded slowly. He'll handle it. He always does. With the updates delivered, the steward bowed and departed, leaving Kalus alone in the vast chamber. He rolled his shoulders, feeling the weight of the day settle into his bones. Even with his soul-bound enhancements, strength, endurance, psychic clarity, ruling an empire was exhausting. He made his way through the palace corridors, past towering windows that overlooked the Dominion's capital. The city stretched for miles, a glittering expanse of megastructures, hover lanes, and psychic reactive architecture that shifted subtly with the emotional state of its inhabitants. Atalandi citizens walked the streets below, some levitating crates with telekinesis, others projecting holographic constructs from their soul-bound cores, children practicing small sparks of psychic light between their palms. It was a world built on the power of the soul. And Kalus ruled it with both strength and compassion. He entered his private study, a warm, quiet room lined with shelves of ancient tomes, crystalline data tablets, and artifacts from across the Oververse. He lit a small incense burner, filling the room with the scent of sweetberry leaves, then settled into his chair. He opened his journal, dipped his pen into ink, and began writing the day's reflections. He had barely written 3 lines when the air behind him rippled. Kalus didn't turn. "If you break that vase again, Slate, I'm sending you the bill." A voice like calm thunder replied, "I have never broken a vase in my life." "You disintegrated one." "That is not the same thing." Kalus finally looked over his shoulder. Slate Voidcrusher, Chaos Lord of Science, stood in the center of the room, hands clasped behind his back as he examined a delicate floating sculpture of soul glass. His dark hair was neatly combed, his suit immaculate, his expression unreadable. He looked like a man attending a business meeting, not a being who existed between the folds of time. Kalus leaned back in his chair. "You could knock, you know." "I did." "No, you phased through the wall." "That is my version of knocking." Kalus snorted. "You're impossible." Slate tilted his head. "Incorrect. I am statistically improbable, not impossible." "Semantics." "Accuracy." Kalus set his journal aside. "All right, old friend. Why are you here?" Slate turned from the artifact, his eyes glowing faintly with chronal light. "How stable are your borders?" Kalus frowned. "Stable enough. Some tension in the south, but nothing unusual." Slate nodded slowly. "It has begun." Kalus's jaw tightened. "Who has been killed this time then?" "I can't say yet." "That's worse. Worse than last time." Slate stepped closer, his presence bending the air around him in subtle ways, as though reality itself were adjusting to accommodate him. "Kalus, listen. A chain reaction has started. Small events, insignificant on their own, but together they form a trajectory that leads to difficulty." Kalus raised an eyebrow. "Difficulty?" "Catastrophe," Slate corrected. "But I am trying to be polite." Kalus rubbed his temples. "Slate, if something is coming, just tell me." "I cannot. You know the rules." "Then why warn me at all?" Slate's expression softened. "Barely, but enough for Kalus to notice. Because you are my friend. And because I prefer a universe where you remain alive." Kalus chuckled. "High praise. It is also statistically beneficial. Your survival increases the probability of planetary stability by 42%. Now that sounds more like you." Slate nodded. "I am nothing if not consistent." Kalus stood and walked to the window, looking out over his empire. "So what do I do?" "Prepare. Fight," Slate said simply. "I'll take care of your family. You just do your psychic barbarian thing." Kalus's eyes narrowed. "I'm not a psychic barbarian." "Psychic barbarian? Where did you get that from?" "I run an entire civilization." "I am stating a fact. There are variables in every equation. Constants, coefficients, and anomalies." "Anomalies?" Slate clasped his hands behind his back. "The X factor. The piece of the equation that cannot be measured." the unpredictable element that changes the outcome. Kalis turned to face him. And you think we have one? I know you do. Kalis studied him for a long moment. You're not talking about me. No, Slate said. You are many things, Kalis, but unpredictable is not one of them. Kalis laughed. Fair. Slate stepped back, the air shimmering around him as time began to fold. The storm is coming. But the X factor will matter. Remember that. Kalis nodded. Thank you, Slate. You are welcome. And Kalis? Yes. Do not touch the vase. Kalis blinked. What vase? Slate vanished. The vase behind him exploded. Kalis sighed. Every time. He picked up his journal again, but the words no longer came easily. The sweetberry tea had gone cold. The incense had burned low. Outside, the Dominion's psychic glow pulsed with the steady rhythm of a world unaware of the storm gathering at its borders. Kalis closed his eyes and whispered to himself, Prepare. Fight. And somewhere far away, the first domino fell. Introduction Part 2, The Ice Ogress Awakens. Pearl woke with a gasp that froze the air around her. Her eyes snapped open to a ceiling she didn't recognize, smooth white stone veined with soul steel, glowing faintly with psychic light. The sheets beneath her were impossibly soft, warmer than anything she'd felt in years. The scent in the room was wrong too. Clean, crisp, tinged with citrus and something faintly metallic. Not a cell. Not a cage. Not the cold stone floors of the slave pens. She was clothed in a silky smooth nightgown. Her white pale skin had been gently scrubbed in a sonic shower. Her instincts screamed anyway. She surged upright, breath steaming, muscles coiling. Frost exploded across the bed frame, racing up the posts and blooming into jagged crystals. Her heart hammered in her chest, and the old terror, the one she thought she'd buried, clawed its way up her throat. Where am I? Her hands clenched, ice forming around her fingers like claws. Then the door opened. Tan Overeem stepped inside. He didn't flinch at the sudden drop in temperature. He didn't raise a weapon. He didn't even look surprised. He simply closed the door behind him and stood there, his molten gold eyes steady, his orange skin catching the soft light like polished amber. Pearl reacted before thought could catch up. She lunged. The floor cracked under her feet as she launched herself across the room, Frost trailing behind her. She swung a fist the size of a boulder, her knuckles encased in ice thick enough to shatter steel. Tan moved. Not fast, not rushed, but with a calm, fluid precision that made her breath catch. He stepped inside her swing, caught her wrist, and redirected her momentum. She twisted, snarling, trying to bring her other arm around, but he was already there, blocking, guiding, turning her strength against her. She fought like a storm. He moved like the eye of it. Her breath came in sharp bursts, cold enough to frost the air. She slammed her knee toward his ribs. He caught it with his thigh. She tried to throw him. He shifted his weight and grounded her. She summoned a burst of ice from her palm. He swept her arm aside before it could form. And then somehow she found herself pinned. Not harshly, not painfully, just held. Her back pressed against the wall, his arms braced on either side of her, his body close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from him. His heartbeat thudded against her chest, strong, steady, warm. Warm. Her breath hitched. The cold around her faltered. Tan's voice was low, steady. Pearl, you're safe. She froze, not from fear, but from the way his voice wrapped around her name. No one had said it like that in years. Not with gentleness. Not with certainty. She swallowed hard, her tusks brushing her lower lip as she lowered her head down before him, unable to move her arms. Let me go. He didn't move. If I do, will you try to break my spine? Maybe. He huffed a quiet laugh. Honest. Good. She blinked, thrown off balance by the humor. Her instincts screamed to fight, to run, to freeze the room solid, but something else tugged at her senses. His scent. Warm. Clean. A faint hint of citrus and metal. And beneath it, something deeper. Something that made her pulse stutter. Her eyes flicked to his chest. His heartbeat had quickened. Not from fear. Not from exertion. From her. Her breath caught again, this time for a different reason. Blood ogres and other males of her kind did not smell like that. They did not smell sweet. They did not wear orange peel oil and bath daily. Tan seemed to realize it at the same moment she did. His eyes widened a fraction. His grip loosened. Their bodies shifted, just slightly. And the movement brought them closer instead of apart. Her forehead brushed his as she rolled her head up without thinking. It was accidental. It was soft. It was enough. Their lips met. Quickly. Without thought. And only blind desire. Pearl nearly closed her eyes. Another startled, instinctive kiss. Brief, electric, unplanned. A spark that leapt between them before either could think to stop it. They both froze. Pearl's eyes widened. Tan's breath caught. They pulled back at the same time, staring at each other in stunned silence. "We didn't," she began. "I know," he said quickly. "It just happened." She stared at him, her throat tight. "Why do you feel so right?" Tan exhaled slowly, his voice softer than she'd ever heard it. "You felt it too." Her heart slammed against her ribs. She lifted a trembling hand and placed it on his chest, right over his heartbeat. His warmth seeped into her palm, melting the last of the frost clinging to her skin. "You would let me hold your heart?" she whispered. His lips parted, but before he could answer, the door burst open. "Boss!" Varric shouted. "We've gotta..." He froze mid-sentence, eyes widening at the sight of Tan and Pearl standing far too close, her hand on his chest, his breath still uneven. Behind him, Lyra and Melira crowded the doorway, both staring with expressions that ranged from shock to heartbreak to barely contain jealousy. Tan stepped back quickly, clearing his throat. "We were discussing her situation." Pearl snorted. "Is that what that was?" Lyra's eye twitched. Melira's silver gaze sharpened dangerously. Tan shot Pearl a look that was half warning, half amusement. "We'll talk later." Pearl crossed her arms, trying to hide the way her cheeks warmed. "Fine." Varric cleared his throat loudly. "Right. Well, we have a problem." "Dan stratend." "What kind?" "The man she assassinated," Varric said, "wasn't just a Syndicate executive. Dan nadid grimly. He was a minister to the Chaos Lord." Pearl stiffened. "What?" Tan met her gaze. "Slate Voidcrusher will come looking for answers." Her blood ran cold. They were contracted to kill someone who served a being that lives between time? "Yes." "And you're not panicking?" "No." "Why not?" "Because," Tan said simply, "I'm the owner of the Syndicate." Pearl stared at him. "You?" He nodded. She looked him up and down, the calm posture, the steady eyes, the quiet strength, and realized she should have known. Everything about him radiated authority, power, and something deeper she couldn't name. She exhaled slowly. "Fine. You want answers? I'll give them." Tan stepped closer, but not too close, just enough that she felt the warmth of him again. "Who hired you?" Pearl hesitated. The assassins had threatened her, hurt her, sold her, but Tan had carried her out of that hell. He had held her without hurting her. He had kissed her, even if neither meant to. She owed them nothing. She owed him something. She lifted her chin. "I know where to find them." Tan nodded once. "Tell me." She did. Every detail. Every location. Every name she remembered. When she finished, Tan turned to Varric. "Contact the Adventurers Guild. They need to know." Varric tapped his wrist console. Trying. But nothing. No response. Tan's expression darkened. "That's not possible." Pearl felt a chill that had nothing to do with her powers. "What does that mean?" Tan looked at her, his golden eyes steady and grim. "It means something is very, very wrong." Introduction Part 3. Pandemonium at the Adventurers Guild Hall. The Guildmaster's Hall was already half ruined when the scene began. The great stained glass windows had shattered inward, their shards scattered across the marble floor like frozen rain. The banners of the Adventurers Guild hung in tatters, fluttering weakly in the psychic wind that still rippled through the air. The pillars trembled, dust drifting down in thin, shimmering curtains. The sonic death wave had hit only moments ago. A single catastrophic chord, flute, wings, and wail in perfect harmony, had swept across the guild grounds like a storm front. Hundreds of adventurers and guards had fallen where they stood, their psychic defenses shattered by the sheer force of the resonance. Only 2 figures remained upright. The guildmaster, leaning heavily on his staff, armor cracked and flickering with unstable light, and Prince Raiden. He stood with one knee bent, one hand braced against the floor, breath ragged, vision swimming. His psychic armor flickered around him in broken fragments, like shards of blue-white glass orbiting his body. His ears still rang with the aftershock of the sonic blast, a high, piercing tone that refused to fade. He forced himself upright. The guildmaster glanced at him, eyes narrowed with grim respect. "Still standing, Your Highness." Raiden swallowed hard, tasting copper and static. "Barely." The guildmaster managed a thin smile. "Barely is enough." The doors exploded inward. A shockwave of dust and splintered wood blasted across the hall. Raiden shielded his face with his forearm as masked figures poured through the breach. Dozens of them, moving in perfect formation. The sightless. Humanoid. Silent. Masked in smooth white porcelain with no eye slits, no features, nothing to read. Their movements were synchronized, eerie, almost ritualistic. Each carried a soul steel blade humming with faint psychic resonance. And behind them came the 3 who had shattered the guild grounds. The blind bard, stepping lightly over the debris, his bladed flute held like a conductor's baton. The bat, wings folded tight against his back, eyes hidden behind a visor of blackened glass. And the banshee, gliding forward with a grace that made the air tremble, her presence chilling the room. The bard lifted his flute. The guildmaster's eyes widened. "Brace." The first note struck like a blade of wind. Raiden barely managed to raise a psychic barrier before the wave hit. The air rippled, bending around the force of the sound. The marble floor cracked beneath the pressure. The guildmaster staggered, his armor flickering violently. The bard shifted melodies. A low, resonant hum filled the hall, soft, almost gentle. Raiden felt it immediately. Light foam began to gather around his limbs, luminous strands drifting like glowing spider silk. They clung to him, slowing his movements, clouding his focus. The guildmaster was hit harder. The foam wrapped around him in thick coils, binding his arms, his legs, his chest. His psychic armor sputtered, then collapsed entirely. "No." Raiden tried to move toward him, but the foam dragged at his limbs like wet sand. The sightless surged forward. The guildmaster fought. He truly did, but the binding melody had weakened him too much. His staff flickered, his stance faltered, and the sightless overwhelmed him in a coordinated rush. He fell as the bat came flashing by, blocked by the ornate staff at his hands, but the banshee shrieked, a cone of audiokinetic fury ripping at his body and soul, leaving him senseless. The bat swooped by again, ripping a line of blood from his back and arms, sending the guildmaster to the ground. Raiden's breath caught. The guildmaster, the man who had helped train him, advise him, challenge him, was gone. Something inside Raiden snapped. The foam tightened around him, trying to bind him completely. But his instincts, the instincts Kalis had beaten into him through years of meditation, discipline, and grueling drills, flared like a star igniting. A pulse erupted from his chest. The foam shredded instantly, torn apart by a wave of raw psychic pressure. The bard's fingers froze on the flute. The sightless hesitated. Raiden rose. His psychic armor reformed around him in a blaze of blue-white light. The air distorted, bending around the sudden surge of power. His heartbeat thundered in his ears, syncing with the hum of his soul. He summoned his weapon. The greatsword formed in his hands, a massive blade of pure psychic energy, taller than he was, radiant and heavy with willpower. The air around it shimmered, warping like heat haze. The sightless charged. Raiden, move. His first swing tore a blue shift arc through the air, the blade leaving a streak of light that lingered for a heartbeat before fading. The impact sent a shockwave across the hall, cracking the marble floor and flaying several sightless ranks clean in half. His movements were slower than Kalis's, heavier, more deliberate, but each strike carried devastating force. Every swing distorted the air, bending space around the blade. Every step left ripples of psychic pressure in his wake. Two more pulled in from the side, But he psychically clutched on and slammed it into the ground with a sickening crunch, and then slashed 3 more apart with a backward diagonal rush that sent a wave of psychic power rippling through the meeting room and into the wall, crushing it to smithereens and exposing the open sky and the guild tower. With their numbers reduced, Raiden realized it was time to be more astute, and so he fought with precision, with discipline, with the training his father had carved into him. A sightless warrior lunged from the left. Raiden pivoted, bringing the greatsword down in a sweeping arc. The impact sent a burst of light across the hall, scattering the attackers like leaves in a storm. The bard lifted his flute again. He played the binding melody. The foam began to form around Raiden's limbs, but this time he was ready. He swung his greatsword in a wide arc, releasing a pulse of psychic force that shredded the foam before it could bind him. The bard's expression didn't change, but his posture did. He switched instruments. The axe lute unfolded from his back, its twin blades gleaming with soul steel edges. He strummed a single chord. The air detonated. A concussive wave blasted across the hall, sending debris flying. Raiden braced himself, planting his feet, raising his greatsword like a shield. The shockwave hit him like a physical blow, pushing him back several steps. The bat leapt into the air, wings snapping open. He beat them once, sending a sonic shockwave downward. The floor cracked beneath the force. The prince pulled his hand up, his psychic might able to pull on the wavelength of the audiokinetic attack, absorbing it into his arm. The banshee inhaled. Raiden's eyes widened. Her scream tore through the hall, a piercing beam of sound that made the air ripple like water. Raiden raised his greatsword, channeling psychic energy into the blade from his supercharged arm. The scream hit the sword, splitting around it in 2 streams of distorted air. The sightless charged again. Raiden exhaled and unleashed everything. His greatsword blazed with star-bright light. The air around him bent, colors stretching into streaks of blue and violet. His movements accelerated, leaving afterimages in his wake, and waves of lethally cutting psychic energy flying down at them. Every swing sent shockwaves across the hall, tearing through the sightless ranks. He became a storm, a force of will, a living echo of Kalis, but heavier, brighter, more explosive. The sightless fell in waves. The bard watched him, silent, unreadable. Raiden's power surged higher, reality bending around him. The hall trembled. The pillars cracked. The air ignited in streaks of blue fire. The bard strummed a final chord, a concussive blast that shattered the floor between them, then vanished into the collapsing debris, retreating with eerie calm. The bat and the banshee followed, slipping into the shadows as the hall began to fall apart. Raiden stood alone, exhausted, drained, barely conscious. He triggered the SOS beacon. A pulse of light shot upward, piercing the sky. The hall collapsed around him, and then a tear opened in space-time. Slate Voidcrusher stepped through. He crossed the ruined hall in 3 strides, lifted the unconscious prince into his arms, and vanished with him into the Chronal Citadel. Chapter 2. Traitor's Gambit. The message reached Kalis in the middle of a council session, a thin ribbon of blue-white light unfurling beside him like a whisper from another world. Slate's sigil. The Emperor lifted a hand, silencing the room instantly. The sigil pulsed once, then delivered its brutal truth in a single breath. Raiden gravely wounded. The Queen and Princess under siege. The Guildmaster's hall destroyed. The damned signal active in the east. Kalis didn't speak. He didn't blink. He simply stood, the air around him tightening as if the palace itself feared what would come next. He walked out of the chamber with a controlled, volcanic calm. Guards pressed themselves against the walls as he passed, sensing the storm building beneath his skin. He moved through the palace like a force of nature, each step echoing with the weight of a man who had ended empires for less. He entered the armory. The lights brightened automatically, recognizing their emperor. Weapons and relics lined the walls, trophies of 1,000 victories, but Kalis ignored them all. He stepped onto the central platform as it rose from the floor, unfolding like a mechanical lotus. 3 layers of armor hovered above it, suspended in magnetic fields. The first to awaken was the symbiotic armor. It rippled across his skin like living shadow, sinking into muscle and bone. merging with nerve and thought. It whispered across his mind with a single word: ready. The Nexogen armor followed, flexible plates snapping into place over the symbiotic layer. They hummed with power, adjusting to his posture, reading his intent. Boosters along his spine flared briefly, calibrating for combat. Then came the royal armor, ceremonial, symbolic, heavy with history. Gold-white plates locked into place over his chest and shoulders, the Dominion crest glowing faintly across his breastplate. It was not the strongest armor he owned, but it was the one that reminded the universe who he was. Kalis exhaled once, a slow, controlled breath. He was armed for war. He strode toward the staging hall. The door slid open. Kalis stopped. The hall was not filled with his elite guard. It was filled with 12 Alpha-rank Psi warriors, the Dominion's strongest soldiers, each one capable of leveling a city block. And standing before them were General Gridlaser and Admiral Voss. Gridlaser's armor hummed with sound resonance nodes, each one glowing with a faint violet pulse. Voss's gauntlets were covered in crystalline ice fractals, cold mist curling from his fingertips. Kalis's voice was quiet. "Where are my troops?" Gridlaser smiled. "We are your troops, my emperor." Voss stepped forward. Or rather, we were. The Alphas raised their heads in perfect unison, their eyes glowing with unnatural clarity, the mathematician's influence. Kalis's expression didn't change. "You dare." Gridlaser spread his arms. "We were paid well," Voss added, "and promise more." Kalis tilted his head. "By whom?" Gridlaser grinned. "The mathematician sends his regards." Kalis laughed. It wasn't a pleasant sound. It was the laugh of a man insulted that anyone thought this would work. "Very well," he said, rolling his shoulders as the symbiotic armor rippled beneath the plates. "Try." The Alphas struck first. 12 psychic signatures flared at once. Ice, sound, pressure, distortion. The air cracked. The floor buckled. The walls rippled like water. Kalis moved. He didn't dodge. He didn't retreat. He simply stepped forward, and the symbiotic armor reacted before the attacks even reached him. A shield of living metal burst from his forearm, absorbing a sonic blast. Tendrils of armor lashed outward, intercepting ice shards mid-air. His Nexogen boosters flared, propelling him through the first wave of attacks. He struck the nearest Alpha with a palm strike. There was no physical damage, but the warrior's mind buckled under the psychic force. His consciousness flickered, then collapsed. He fell limp, armor dimming. One down. The others hesitated. Kalis smiled. Next. They obeyed. The palace halls became a labyrinth of ice walls and sonic traps. Ice-enhanced Alphas froze entire corridors, creating jagged barriers. Sound-enhanced warriors warped the air, turning footsteps into disorienting echoes. Kalis tore through them. He shattered ice walls with psychic pulses. He silenced sonic traps with counter-frequencies. He moved like a storm given human shape. An Alpha leapt from above, blade crackling with ice resonance. Kalis slapped the blade to shard with his extended fingers. The Alpha's eyes widened. Kalis flicked his wrist. A psychic shockwave rippled outward, overwhelming the warrior's mind. The Alpha collapsed, unconscious before he hit the floor. 2 down. 3. 4. The palace shook with the force of the battle. Statues cracked. Windows shattered. The air hummed with psychic pressure. Gridlaser's voice echoed through the halls. "He's pushing through too fast." Voss cut him off. Kalis burst through the palace gates and into the streets. Civilians fled in every direction, the sky above flickering with unstable energy. The remaining Alphas formed a circle around him. Ice and sound combined, freezing the ground beneath him, distorting the air above him. A dome of shimmering resonance formed, trapping him inside. Kalis looked around. He raised his hand. The symbiotic armor surged outward, forming a sphere of living metal around him. It pulsed once, then detonated in a wave of psychic force. The dome shattered. The Alpha staggered. 3 more minds collapsed under the pressure. Gridlaser cursed. "He's breaking them too easily." Voss snarled. "Then we take him to the skies." Gridlaser launched upward. wings of sound forming behind him. Voss followed, ice jets propelling him into the air. Kalis activated his Nexogen boosters. The three collided above the city in a storm of psychic energy. Grid Laser unleashed a sonic barrage. Kalis's armor rippled, absorbing the frequencies. Voss hurled spears of ice. The symbiotic layer formed counterstructures, dissolving them mid-flight. Kalis struck Grid Laser with a psychic blow that sent the general spiraling. Voss dove, slamming into Kalis with a burst of freezing energy. The royal armor cracked. The Nexogen plate shattered. Kalis fell. He crashed through a rooftop, rolled across stone and rose slowly. Grid Laser landed across from him, panting. "Your armor is gone." Kalis straightened. The symbiotic armor crawled across his skin, forming new plates, new shapes, new weapons. Not all of it. Grid Laser's face went pale. The battle tore across the landscape, through the city, over the walls, into the mountains. Snow whipped around them as Voss and Grid Laser launched their final assault. Voss froze the air itself, creating a storm of razor-sharp ice. Grid Laser amplified the storm with sonic resonance, turning it into a vortex of sound and frost. Kalis walked through it. The symbiotic armor adapted instantly, forming aerodynamic plates, absorbing sound, melting ice, amplifying his strength. He reached Voss first. A single touch to the Admiral's forehead. A psychic overload. Voss's mind flickered out like a candle. Grid Laser screamed and charged. Kalis caught him by the throat. "You betrayed my son," he said quietly. Grid Laser's mind shattered under the Emperor's psychic pressure. His body went limp. Kalis released him. The storm faded. The mountains fell silent. Kalis swayed. The symbiotic armor tried to hold him upright, knitting bruises from sonic feedback, reinforcing muscles and bones frayed by supernatural temperatures. But even it had limits. He collapsed to one knee, then to the ground. Darkness closed in. A tear opened in the air beside him, a rift of blue-white light. Slate Void Crusher stepped through, cloak billowing in the temporal wind. He knelt beside Kalis, placing a hand on his chest. "You stubborn old titan." Kalis didn't respond. Slate lifted him effortlessly, the symbiotic armor retracting to allow the movement. A second rift opened. Slate carried Kalis through it, into the Chronal Citadel, and placed him beside Raiden in stasis. "Rest," Slate murmured. "Both of you. The Dominion still needs its rulers." The chamber sealed. The chapter ended. Chapter 2 Interlude, Forest of the Damned. The Crystal Woods had always been a place of quiet beauty. Towering metallic trees that chimed softly in the wind, their crystalline leaves catching the sun in 1,000 fractured colors. Now the forest burned. Gunships carved through the sky like metal vultures. Gun robots marched between the crystal trunks, their limbs clattering with mechanical precision. Dark elves fought desperately among the trees, their arrows shattering harmlessly against armored plating. The air was thick with smoke, sparks, and the metallic scent of overheating circuitry. Tan guided the airship down through the chaos, hands steady on the controls. Pearl stood beside him, one hand braced on the console, the other resting lightly on his shoulder. She wasn't afraid, she was watching him. He didn't realize it. He was too focused on the battlefield. "Gun creatures," Pearl murmured. "I've read about them. Never thought I'd see them." "Tanes Nortez. You never want to see them. They're loud, stubborn, and they explode when you insult their manufacturer." Pearl blinked. "They explode when you?" "Long story," Tan said. "Involves a Syndicate engineer, a bad warranty, and a very creative use of profanity." Pearl laughed, the sound bright even over the roar of battle. Tan felt it like a warm pulse in his chest. The airship touched down behind a ridge of shattered crystal. Dominion elites were already there, armored Psi soldiers, their weapons glowing with psychic charge. Syndicate fighters flanked them, moving with the easy confidence of people who'd fought gun creatures before and had the scars to prove it. The moment Tan stepped off the ship, the Dominion soldiers straightened. The Syndicate fighters grinned. "Boss," one of them called. "You're late." Tan rolled his eyes. "I had to pick someone up." Pearl stepped down beside him, and the Syndicate fighters immediately took notice. They exchanged looks, impressed, curious, and in one case openly relieved. Good, muttered a grizzled Syndicate veteran. He finally brought someone who can keep him from working himself into an early grave. Pearl raised a brow. You think I can keep him in line? Oh, we're counting on it, the veteran said. Just don't hurt him. He's important to us. Pearl blinked, taken aback by the sincerity. Tam pretended not to hear, but the tips of his ears turned pink. Before she could respond, a gunship screamed overhead, firing a barrage of energy bolts into the trees. Dominion elites raised shields. Syndicate fighters dove for cover. Tan grabbed Pearl's hand and pulled her behind a fallen crystal trunk. You okay? He asked. Pearl nodded. You. He smiled, a real smile, bright and unguarded. Better now. She felt her heart stutter. They moved together through the battlefield, Tan directing Dominion squads with crisp efficiency, while Pearl used her own abilities to disrupt gun robot targeting systems. She moved with grace, weaving between crystal pillars, her presence a steady anchor beside him. At one point, a gun robot lunged from behind a tree, metal claws snapping. Pearl reacted first, grabbing Tan's arm and pulling him back as a Syndicate fighter vaulted over them, slamming a charge into the robot's chest. The machine convulsed, lights flickering, then collapsed in a heap of sparking metal. Tan exhaleth. Thanks. Pearl smirked. You can thank me later. He opened his mouth, then closed it, cheeks warming. She laughed again. As the battle raged, they found moments of quiet between the chaos. Moments where they talked, really talked, in a way neither had expected. Pearl told him about her childhood, growing up in a small village where the biggest excitement was the annual Lantern Festival. How she used to sneak out at night to watch the stars, convinced they were watching her back. Tan told her about his raised among Syndicate engineers who treated him like a mascot until he outbuilt all of them. How he once tried to fix a broken hover sled and accidentally launched it into the mayor's house. Pearl snorted. You didn't. I did, Tan said. The mayor still won't look me in the eye. They ducked behind a crystal outcropping as another gunship exploded overhead, raining harmless sparks. Pearl leaned close, shoulder brushing his. You're different when you're here, she said softly. Tamblinat. Different how? Lighter, she said. Happier. Like you're home. He looked away, suddenly shy. Maybe I am. Pearl's breath caught. The Dominion elites pushed forward, carving through the gun robots with disciplined precision. The Syndicate fighters flanked them, dismantling machines with practiced ease. Together, they formed a seamless unit, raw power and gritty experience working in perfect harmony. Tan and Pearl moved with them, side by side. At one point, a Dominion captain approached Pearl quietly. He smiles more with you around, she said. We've all noticed. Pearl blinked. Is that good? It's very good, the captain said. Just don't break him. He's been through enough. Pearl smiled through her tusks. I won't. The captain nodded, satisfied. The battle reached its peak as the final wave of gunships descended. Tan coordinated the counterattack, shouting orders with a confidence Pearl had never seen in him before. Dominion elites unleashed psychic blasts that lit the sky. Syndicate fighters launched grappling charges, pulling gunships from the air. Pearl watched Tan initiate a hack he got from Varric that quickly infected the enemy network, forcing half the machines to turn on each other. The invasion collapsed. The crystal woods fell silent again, scarred, smoking, but alive. Tan stood at the edge of a shattered clearing, watching the last gunship crash in the distance. Pearl stepped beside him, slipping an arm around his back. He leaned into her without thinking, the tension in his shoulders finally easing. You did good, she murmured. We did good, he corrected. She smiled. You know, I think I'm starting to understand why your people love you. Tan es nortez. They tolerate me. No, Pearl said, turning him gently to face her. They love you. They trust you. They believe in you. And after today, I think I do too. Tan's breath caught. He opened his mouth, then closed it again, overwhelmed. Pearl laughed softly. You're adorable when you're flustered. I am not. You absolutely are. Oh, they already know, she said. They warned me not to hurt you. Tan froze. They what? Pearl shrugged. Apparently you're important to them. Tan's face turned bright red. Are they vets? Pearl leaned in and kissed his cheek. He went silent. Completely silent. Pearl smiled, slipping her hand into his. Come on, hero. Let's go check on your people. Tan followed her, still stunned, still blushing, but smiling wider than he had in years. And the crystal woods, wounded but standing, chimed softly in the wind, as if blessing the beginning of something new. Chapter 3, Wars Fought. Part 1. Prediction does not equal control. The medical camp rose like a patchwork city of white tents and humming generators, nestled in the shadow of the crystal woods. The metallic trees still chimed faintly in the wind, though many were cracked or half-melted from the battle. Dominion banners fluttered beside Syndicate insignias, an uneasy alliance made necessary by the scale of the attack. Tan walked between the tents with Pearl at his side, her hand brushing his every so often, as if checking he was still there. He didn't mind. He'd never admit it aloud, but her presence steadied him in a way nothing else did. Inside the largest tent, the queen lay on a medical slab, her breathing steady but shallow. The princess sat beside her, wrapped in a thermal cloak, eyes red but determined. Syndicate medics moved around them with quiet efficiency, their tools glowing with soft blue light. Tane prouść gently. How is she? The princess looked up. Stable. They said the sonic shockwave nearly ruptured her psychic channels. If the Syndicate hadn't been nearby. Tan stepped forward. She'll recover. She's strong. The princess nodded, grateful for the reassurance. Tan's team arrived moments later, a mix of Syndicate engineers and Dominion analysts, all carrying fragments of evidence from the battlefield. One of them held up a datapad encased in a thick layer of frost. We found this near the gunship wreckage, she said. It's frozen solid. Not natural ice. This is psi ice. Someone enhanced it. Dan Froneth. Greg Barrett never used psi ice. He never used psionic sonics either. He barely understood psi anything. Pearl took the datapad, examining the frost. This is deliberate. Someone wanted to preserve whatever's inside. Another team member stepped forward, holding a torn scrap of paper sealed in a protective sleeve. We also found this. It's from the old ways of new paths. Blinget. That's obscure. Pearl raised a brow. Obscure? I've never heard of it. There are books sometimes from other dimensions. They contain knowledge about reality we don't have here, Tan explained. Kalis hates it. Pearl smirked. Then whoever used it has forbidden knowledge. The final piece of evidence came from a Syndicate scout, a crystalline device humming with faint energy. This was embedded in the forest, he said. It's the signal that converted the crystal trees into weapons. Tan's eyes widened. That's not Greg's tech. He couldn't convert a toaster into a toaster. Someone made him able to convert crystal like he did metal. The princess stared at the crystalline device and nodded slowly. Greg Barrett didn't do this alone. The tent fell silent. Before anyone could speak, the air rippled. A pulse of blue-white light tore open in the center of the camp, sending papers flying and medics stumbling back. The princess gasped. Syndicate fighters reached for weapons. Tan didn't move. He just crossed his arms and muttered. Took you long enough. Kalis stepped out of the rift first, tall, imposing symbiotic armor still faintly pulsing beneath his robes. Raiden followed, looking pale but steady, his psychic aura dimmed but intact. The camp froze. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Kalis surveyed the room with the calm intensity of a man who had walked through fire and expected more. Raiden's gaze softened when he saw Tan, and Tan gave him a nod that said everything without saying anything. Pearl, however, was the only one who didn't look shocked. She just raised a brow. Teleporting into a medical tent? Bold choice. Kalis blinked at her. You must be Pearl. And you must be the father who taught Raiden how to glare like that. Raiden groaned. Pearl, please. Kalis chuckled. I like her. Tan stepped forward. We found something. Several somethings. Kalis's expression sharpened. Show me. Tan handed him the frozen datapad. The Emperor touched it lightly, and the symbiotic armor beneath his skin pulsed, sending a wave of heat through the frost. It cracked, then fell away in glittering shards. The datapad flickered to life. Lines of code scrolled across the screen. Complex, elegant, terrifyingly precise. Raiden leaned in. That's not Greg Barrett's work. No. Tan said. Greg couldn't write code like this if you gave him a century and a tutor. Pearl crossed her arms. Greg was a pawn. Someone else orchestrated this. Kalis looked at her. You have a theory. I have more than a theory, Pearl said. I have a name. The tent grew still. Pearl held up the torn page from the old ways of new paths. This book is what my employer must have used. Raiden frowned. That sounds like the mathematician, Pearl finished. He's the only one who could enhance Psi Warriors with ice and sound simultaneously. He hired the Cold Open and sent them on the mission I was captured on and sold. I met him once. He spoke like he was the only one with future knowledge. Then slowly. And the only one who would use Greg Barrett as a distraction and bring him back to life. Kalis' eyes narrowed. This mathematician is operating from the Assassin's Guild. Pearl met his gaze. Yes. Pearl smiled faintly. This man may be using forbidden knowledge to calculate outcomes, reasoned Tan. Kalis turned to Tan. How certain are you? Tan gestured to the evidence. Frozen datapad with Psi Ice. A banned philosophical text. A signal that weaponizes crystal forests. Greg Barrett's complete lack of intelligence. It all points to one person. Pearl stepped closer to Tan, her shoulder brushing his. The mathematician predicted every move we'd make. But he didn't predict us working together. Raiden smirked. He definitely didn't predict our survival. Kalis nodded. Then we strike first. Tan raised a brow. You want to hit the Assassin's Guild? Kalis's eyes glowed faintly. I want to tear it apart. Pearl looked between them. We need a plan. The mathematician doesn't fight directly. He manipulates. He calculates. He sets traps. Tan stepped forward, placing the datapad on the table. We have evidence. We have motive. We have a target. Pearl added. And we have something he didn't account for. Kalis raised a brow. Which is? Pearl slipped her hand into Tan's. Us. The tent fell silent again. But this time, it wasn't fear. It was resolve. Kalis nodded once. Then we move. Raiden smiled. Let's go break a mathematician. Tan squeezed Pearl's hand. Together. And somewhere, far away, in the shadowed halls of the Assassin's Guild, a man surrounded by equations and predictions paused mid-calculation. For the first time in years, one of his predictions flickered. And failed. Chapter 3 Part 2, Assault on the Assassin's Guild. The Assassin's Guild fortress clung to the mountainside like a black iron parasite, its towers jutting from the cliff face at impossible angles. Runes crawled across the stone like living frost, pulsing with cold blue light. The wind howled through the jagged spires, carrying the faint metallic scent of psychic residue. Tan stood at the front of the group, cloak snapping in the wind. Pearl was beside him, her hand brushing his as the wind whipped around them. Behind them, Dominion elites, Syndicate fighters, and Princess Veilira's royal guard formed a tense, uneasy line. Raiden cracked his knuckles. This place feels wrong. Then Zenith. It's supposed to. Pearl's eyes narrowed. He's here. Frostmark? Tan asked. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. The fortress gates groaned open. Four figures stepped out, framed by the cold blue glow of the runes. Cold open. Frostmark led them, tall, sharp-featured, armor etched with cruel ice sigils. His smile was a blade. Pearl, I was hoping you'd come. Pearl didn't flinch. I'm not afraid of you anymore. Behind him, Glacier moved with surgical precision, her steps silent on the frost-covered stone. Shardblade twirled crystalline knives with theatrical flair, grinning like he was about to perform on stage. Hollowfrost drifted behind them, silent, his presence like a shadow that forgot how to be human. Ten muttered, Great. A full set of nightmares. Pearl stepped forward. Frostmark is mine. Tan didn't argue. The wind stilled. Cold open moved. The courtyard erupted into chaos. Frostmark struck first, a blast of freezing psychic force that shattered the ground where Pearl had been standing a heartbeat earlier. She rolled, came up fast, and slammed a pulse of her own energy into his chest. Frostmark staggered, surprised. "You've grown," he said. "You haven't," Pearl replied. They clashed. Frost against frost, memory against defiance. Glacier lunged toward Tan, but two figures stepped in front of him. Tan's lawyer and accountant. Both wore reinforced business attire, soul-bound armor glowing beneath the fabric. The lawyer cracked her whip. The accountant snapped her chain. Glacier raised a brow. "You brought office workers?" The Lyra smiled. "We prefer the term soul-bound professionals." Shardblade laughed, spinning his knives. "Oh, this will be fun." It wasn't. The dark elf accountant's chain wrapped around Shardblade's wrist, sending a pulse of soul energy that made the assassin's mind flicker. Lyra's whip lashed out, striking Glacier with a burst of psychic force that staggered her. Hollowfrost drifted toward Princess Veolyra like a ghost, his presence chilling the air. Veolyra drew her royal Psyblade, violet fire swirling around the edge. "I hate Syndicate methods," she muttered. Lyra called out. "Then don't use them." Veolyra smirked. "I wasn't planning to." The courtyard became a storm of psychic blasts, frost shards, chain strikes, and violet fire. Pearl and Frostmark circled each other, the air crackling with tension. Frostmark's attacks were sharp, precise, meant to break Pearl's mind the way he once had. But Pearl was no longer bound to their party. She caught her wrist, twisted, and sent a freezing shock through her arm. Frostmark gasped as her body froze over, not breaking but faltering. "You can't hurt me anymore," Pearl said. Frostmark snarled and unleashed a storm of ice shards. Pearl raised a barrier, the shards dissolving against it like snow on flame. Then she struck, a focused cryokinetic punch that hit Frostmark square in the forehead. Her consciousness buckled as his skull caved in. She collapsed, dead before she hit the ground. Pearl exhaled, trembling, not from fear, but from release. Shardblade lunged, knives flashing. But the Meliora redirected the attack with a twist of her chain, sending Shardblade spinning into a wall. Glacier countered with a flurry of frostblades, but the Lyra dissolved them with a whip crack that sent a shockwave through the air. Shardblade tried to rise. Lyra snapped her whip lightly at his forehead, splitting his skull open and dropping him hard into the ground with a fatal thud. Glacier fought harder, colder, faster, but Melira's chains and her experience held her at bay. A random link wrapped around her arm, sending a surge of energy that overwhelmed her mind, and then slammed her into a wall. Glacier fell silently. Lyra dusted her hands. "Billable hours." The dark elf nodded. "We'll invoice later." Hollowfrost struck, a silent wave of psychic cold that tried to smother Veolyra's mind. She countered with a burst of royal fire, the flames swirling around her blade. They clashed, cold silence against burning resolve. Hollowfrost's attacks were eerie, disorienting, meant to drain her will. But Veolyra's spirit burned too brightly. She pushed forward, each strike of her blade sending ripples of psychic heat through the air. Hollowfrost faltered. Veolyra unleashed a final burst of fire that overwhelmed his consciousness, burning away his mind and his soul. He collapsed, silent as ever. Veolyra flicked her blade. Assassins burn like anyone else. The group pushed into the fortress. The interior was a maze of shifting corridors, runes crawling across the walls like spiders. The air hummed with psychic traps. Tan muttered, "This place is a fire hazard." Pearl elbowed him. "Focus." A rumble shook the hall. A figure stumbled out of the shadows, massive, scarred, eyes glowing with unnatural energy. Greg Barrett. Resurrected. Enhanced. Controlled. He saw Tan. "You. Then Saith." "Greg, buddy, we've talked about this." Greg roared and charged. "Then Daith. Barely." "Okay, we haven't talked enough." Greg swung his arm up first, a scattershot weapon forming in his hand. Tan flit from sight, dipping around shot after shot as the firearm clicked, discharged, and clicked again, sending hard light energy shards as projectiles along the corridor. Tan focused and unleashed a concentrated burst of speed, So fast, it looked like he whipped right through him. Greg froze. His eyes flickered. His dead eyes gazed down at the gaping hole in his chest. He collapsed like a felled tree. Tan exhaled, dropping the beating metal heart after crushing it to bits in his hand. The first time we fought, it took me forever to figure out how to kill him. I never want to see him again. The air shimmered. The blind bard stepped out, staff in hand, eyes covered, aura pulsing with dark resonance. Raiden stepped forward. I've been waiting for this. The bard tilted his head. So have I. They clashed. Sound against psychic force, resonance against mental will. The bard's attacks were haunting melodies that twisted the air. Raiden countered with sharp, focused bursts of psychic rhythm with his great sword. The chamber vibrated with their duel. The bard tried to overwhelm Raiden with a dissonant chord, but Raiden shattered it with a swift slash of his psychic greatsword that rippled like thunder. He swiveled his sword around, in a distracting arc, and pulled his hand up, sending a rippling wave of psionic power at the blind bard. The bard staggered. The flood of energy distorting his senses, his means of locating his opponent. Raiden struck, a final psionic pulse that overwhelmed the bard's consciousness. The bard collapsed silent at last, his mind torn to shreds at a metaphysical level. Raiden exhaled. That was for the guildmaster. And for me. Chapter 3 Part 3. The Mathematician's Last Stand. The door opened with a sound like a breath being drawn in reverse. A cold wind swept past the group as they stepped into the chamber, a vast, cathedral-like space carved directly into the mountain. The walls were covered in shifting equations, glowing sigils, and floating geometric constructs that rotated in slow, impossible patterns. The air hummed with a pressure that made the skin prickle. At the center of the room stood the mathematician. She was calm, too calm. Her posture perfect, her expression serene, her eyes glowing with cold, crystalline intellect. She looked at them as if they were variables in an equation she had already solved. "You are late," she said. Kayla stepped forward, Slate beside him. "We were busy." The mathematician tilted her head. "I accounted for that." Pearl whispered, "She's been predicting us." Tan muttered, "Well, she didn't predict Greg falling on me twice." Raiden elbowed him. "Focus." The mathematician raised a hand. The room fractured. Copies of her appeared, dozens, then hundreds, each one stepping out of the glowing equations on the walls. They moved in perfect synchronization, their eyes all fixed on the intruders. Then the air rippled again. Copies of Kayla stepped forward. Perfect replicas, each one radiating imperial power, each one wearing the same symbiotic armor, each one carrying the same psychic weight. Raiden whispered, "That's unfair." Kalis cracked his neck. Oververse. The duplicates attacked. Swirling forms and growing lights filled the air as the battle was on instantly. Kalis met the first copy head-on, their psychic auras colliding in a shockwave that cracked the floor. The second struck from behind. Kalis blocked with a symbiotic shield. The third launched a psychic spear. Kalis shattered it with a counterpulse. He fought like a storm. The copies fought like equations. Each one precise, predictable, calculated. A spear, a shockwave, but no variance. Kalis grinned. "You think you can with tactics alone?" He unleashed a burst of chaotic psychic force. Wild, unpatterned, impossible to model. Half the copies flickered. A quarter collapsed. Kalis surged forward, overwhelming the rest with raw, unfiltered will. The mathematician turned her attention to Slate. "Your mind is sharp," she said, "but predictable." Slate raised a brow. "You'd be surprised." She hurled logic bombs, equations that tried to rewrite his thoughts, formula sigils that attempted to trap him in paradox loops, runes that sought to freeze his cognition. Slate countered with scientific constructs, energy lattices, probability disruptors, quantum shields. He sliced through sigils with beams of pure calculation. He erased runes with bursts of anti-formula energy. He wasn't overwhelmed. He was analyzing. And winning. "You rely on prediction," Slate said. "But prediction is not understanding." The mathematician's eyes widened. Slate fired a construct that unraveled her equations midair. A rumble shook the chamber. Greg Barrett stumbled in from a side passage, revived again by the mathematician's sigils. His eyes glowed with unstable energy, his movements jerky and puppet-like. Raiden groaned. Not again. Dun Saeed. Greg buddy, please stay down. Greg roared and charged. Tan and Raiden moved together, psychic rhythm and raw force. Tan struck with focused precision. Raiden countered Greg's resonance with psionic disruption. Greg's mind flickered. Tan unleashed a spinning kick, squashing his already ruined skull to bits. Greg's remaining mass collapsed. Y then patatan shulde. You handled that well. Tangroaneth. I hate him so much. He keeps coming back. The air shimmered again. The blind bard rose from the floor, revived by the mathematician's equations, his staff glowing with dark resonance. His blindfold fluttered as if caught in a wind only he could feel. Raiden stepped forward. Round 2. The bard tilted his head. You cannot silence a song that has already been written. Raiden smirked. Watch me. They clashed. Sound against psionic, resonance against psychically charged greatsword. The bard's attacks were haunting melodies that twisted the air. Raiden countered with sharp, focused swipes that rent the musical sigils before they could suffocate and weaken him. They ran forward, the prince cutting forth the musical cascade before it could harm him. The psychically charged greatsword slammed against sonically reinforced energy as a low hum issued from the bard's hands when he blocked. The chamber vibrated with their duel. Now the speed picked up. As the hands of the bard morphed into a dance, a calculated series of crage blows that prince had to block and dodge, recognizing the lethal nature of the energies charging them. Slipping under a harsh chop that would have exploded his shoulder with audiokinetic force, Raiden took the chance to scrape his blade through mathematically enhanced flesh and bone from beneath an outstretched arm. The bard staggered and fell, the prince, staring down at the revived corpse with disgust and pity. And that one was for you. The mathematician watched all of this with growing irritation. This is not possible, she whispered. I calculated every outcome. Pearl stepped forward. You calculated patterns, not people. The mathematician's gaze snapped to her. You are irrelevant. Pearl smiled. You always said that. And you were always wrong. The mathematician raised her hand. A dozen sigils forming around her. Pearl raised hers, a sheer wave of female fury slashing down from her outstretched hand. The sigils shattered with a carrying slap. The mathematician blinked. That was not predicted. Then stepped beside Bearl. We're unpredictable. Kalis finished crushing the last of his duplicates and strode toward the mathematician. Symbiotic armor rippling with power. You've lost, he said. The mathematician backed away, equations swirling around her like a storm. No, I accounted for every variable, every possibility, every. Slate cut her off. You accounted for outcomes, not choices. The equations around her flickered. Pearl stepped closer. You tried to control the future, but you never understood the present. Raiden added. You underestimated us. Tan finished, and that's why you lost. The mathematician's eyes darted between them, panic rising. No, this is wrong. This is all wrong. The numbers don't. Kalis raised his hand. Slate raised his. A scientific construct formed, a sphere of anti-formula energy, humming with power. It struck the mathematician. Her equations unraveled. Her predictions collapsed. Her consciousness flickered. Not violently, not graphically, but like an equation dissolving into nothing. She collapsed unconscious, her mind silenced. The sigils faded. The chamber stilled. The war was over. Epilogue. The Broken Paths. Part 1. Slate's explanation. The storm over the Assassin's Guild had finally broken. The sky above the mountain was clear for the first time in days. The stars sharp and cold against the darkness. The air smelled of ozone and old magic, the lingering residue of equations that had tried to rewrite the world. Slate stood at the edge of the terrace, hands clasped behind his back, staring out into the night as if calculating the shape of the horizon. His coat fluttered in the wind, the faint glow of his scientific constructs fading from his gauntlets. He looked tired, not physically, but in the way a mind grows weary after wrestling with the impossible. Behind him, footsteps approached. Kalis. Riding. Gun. Pearl. They formed a loose circle around him, the wind tugging at their cloaks, the mountain quiet beneath their feet. Slate didn't turn. You're all here. Good. This needs to be said once, clearly, before the world starts asking questions. Tan crossed his arms. Slate, if this is about Greg Barrett. It's about everything, Slate said. And it begins long before Greg. Kalis stepped forward, his presence steady and grounding. Speak. Slate finally turned to face them. His eyes were sharp, but there was a heaviness behind them. The weight of a man who had seen the threads of reality pulled too tight. It started with the assassination of Minister Halden, Slate said. Everyone assumed it was political. A syndicate hit. A dominion perd. A rogue faction. But the truth is simpler and far more dangerous. Pearl frowned. The mathematician. Slate nodded. She needed a catalyst. A disruption. Something to destabilize the Dominion's predictive models and create a vacuum of uncertainty. Halden's death was the first fracture. Raiden's jaw tightened. She killed him to start a chain reaction. Yes, Slate said. And she succeeded. He paced slowly, hands moving as if arranging invisible diagrams. Once Halden fell, the Dominion scrambled. The Syndicate panicked. The Guild saw opportunity. And in that chaos, she resurrected Greg Barrett. Tangroaneth. Why Greg? Of all people. Because he was predictable, Slate said. A simple mind. Easy to manipulate. Easy to enhance. And most importantly, easy to hide behind. Every move she made through him. Every anomaly, every impossible power, every destabilizing event, all attributed to Greg. Pearl shivered. He was a puppet. A puppet with strings woven from forbidden knowledge, Slate said. Knowledge from the old ways of new paths. Kalis's expression darkened. That book should never have existed. It barely does, Slate replied. Most copies were destroyed centuries ago. But fragments remained. Pages, notes, equations. And the mathematician found them. Raiden stepped closer. What exactly did she learn? Slate exhaled slowly. How to bend probability. How to create predictive loops. How to rewrite the boundaries of reality. How to multiply herself. How to create copies of Kalis. How to resurrect the dead. How to destabilize the fabric of reality without tearing it. Tamblinat. That sounds bad. It was catastrophic, Slate said. Every time she used those equations, she weakened the structure of other realities to do it. Not enough to break it, but enough to make it tremble, to shake worlds once stable along reality's resonance. Pearl hugged her arms around herself. So the crystal forests, the gun creatures, the sonic storms, all of it may have altered other worlds in negative ways, Slate said. All of it. Kalis's voice was quiet. And now? Slate looked at him. Now we wait. There will be a sign. A signal that all will change on a level we cannot prevent. Chaos will balance. Raiden let out a breath. What does that mean? It means that things may change in other points of reality, and end our existence as we know it. And things may not. We have rolled a set of cosmic dice. And because of that book, the old ways of new paths, that could rip everything we know into fine shreds like it never existed, said Slate calmly. Tan asked, what about the pages? The fragments? Slate's expression hardened. Destroyed. All of them. Every scrap. Every note. Every equation. No one should ever touch that knowledge again. But that is not the problem. If anyone has ever used the book, then their influence, even other copies of the pages, may be in other dimensions. This may never end. We must always be ready. Pearl nodded. Agreed. Kalis placed a hand on Slate's shoulder. You have done well. Slate gave a small, tired smile. I didn't do it alone. Raiden stepped forward, offering his hand. Thank you, Chaos Lord, for everything. Slate shook it. You fought well, Prince. Then Nadith. And you didn't let the universe collapse. Pearl stepped closer. Chaos Lord, thank you. Truly. Slate inclined his head. You all did what the equations said you wouldn't. You broke the pattern. You chose unpredictability. And that saved us. Kalis looked at each of them in turn. Then let this be our final act. We destroy the remnants. We close the path she opened. And we ensure no one walks it again. They all nodded. The wind swept across the terrace, carrying away the last echoes of the battle. Slate turned back toward the horizon. The broken paths end here. Kalis stepped beside him, and new ones begin. Raiden smiled faintly. Together. Then grinned, preferably without Greg. Pearl laughed softly, and for the first time since the war began, the mountain felt still. Epilogue Part 2, The Broken Paths. The hovercraft hummed softly as it drifted away from the Assassin's Guild, its lights cutting through the night like warm lanterns. The air was cold and crisp, the stars sharp above the mountains. The world felt quieter now. Not healed, but breathing again. Tan sat near the back of the craft, leaning against the railing, watching the lights of the Dominion airship in the distance. The wind tugged at his hair, carrying the faint scent of frost and ozone. Pearl sat on the opposite side, far opposite, arms wrapped around her knees, eyes fixed on the floor, shoulders tense. Tan watched her for a moment, then sighed. Pearl. She didn't look up. You're sitting like I'm contagious. Still nothing. Tan pushed off the railing and walked toward her, boots thudding softly against the metal floor. He stopped a few feet away. Come here. Pearl's head snapped up. What? No. I'm fine here. You're not, Tan said gently. You're scared. She bristled. I'm not scared. You're terrified, Tan said. Of me. Of you. Of what you're feeling. Pearl's breath hitched. Tan extended a hand. Come here. She stared at it like it was a trap. It's not going to hurt, Tan said softly. I'm not going to hurt you. Pearl swallowed hard. Then. I don't know how to do this. Neither do I, he admitted. But we can figure it out together. She hesitated. Tan stepped closer, slow and careful, like approaching a frightened animal. He reached out, gently took her wrist, and tugged her toward him. Pearl resisted for a heartbeat. Then she let go. Tan pulled her into his lap, settling her against his chest. She stiffened at first, hands hovering awkwardly in the air, unsure where to put them. Tan wrapped his arms around her, warm and steady. Breathe, he whispered. Pearl exhaled shakily. Her hands lowered. One rested on his chest. The other slid around his back. She leaned into him, her forehead pressing against his collarbone. The tension in her shoulders melted, replaced by something softer, something fragile and real. The hovercraft drifted through the night, the wind brushing past them like a quiet blessing. Tan rested his chin on her head. See? Not so scary. Pearl's voice was barely a whisper. I'm not used to this. I know. I don't want to mess it up. You won't. She closed her eyes. You don't know that. Then smiled. I know you're not messing it up now. Pearl let out a soft, trembling laugh. You're impossible. And you're stuck with me. She shifted slightly, curling closer, her arms tightening around him. The warmth between them grew, steady and grounding, like a fire in the cold. For a long time they didn't speak. The hovercraft glided through the night, the mountains falling away behind them, the airship growing larger ahead. The world felt wide and open, full of paths that had yet to be walked. Pearl finally whispered, Tan? Yeah, don't let go. He held her tighter. Never. The wind swept past them, carrying away the last remnants of fear.